Yeah, big up Jagged Edge. Nice one from Jagged Edge from back in the day. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So yeah, let's catch up with the sports news before we jump into our main topic: cleaning up the dating pool. So yesterday, Saturday, 4th of April, main event: Derek Chisora, heavyweight boxing. 12 rounds of heavyweight boxing, not for the title, but for some good bread, for some good money. Um, UK representative Derek Chisora versus Deontay Wilder. Um, Deontay Wilder won a split decision. Um, how can I describe the fight first of all? Or let me describe the decision. It was a real hometown decision. They was really trying to, between the judges and the referee, they was really trying to give Derek Chisora the victory. Definitely. Yeah, me and my son. Shout out to my son T. Big up yourself every time. Watched it and we couldn't stop. We couldn't stop laughing. The referee was trying to do everything to kind of like do a favor for Chisora, taking off points where they shouldn't have been taken off for no reason. Even the commentators were saying, "What the hell is a referee doing?" They were confused. But it was a hard fought contest, and yeah, I believe Derek Chisora is going to hang up the gloves. 50 fights, and he's calling it quits. While Deontay Wilder will go on with both of them with their health and their strength back to their families and go on to make bread. But enough with the boxing. I got to talk about the promotion of the fight and kind of like lean into a little bit of this popular culture discourse, man. I mean, Derek Chisora, right? He's an athlete, he's a fighter, right? And professional fighters are called prize fighters. You fight for a prize. So far, so good. And you have different gimmicks, right? Fighters will have different gimmicks or create personas or have some sort of shtick or whatever they call it, right? That helps them to stand out. And the more you stand out is the more chance you have of winning a bigger prize, getting paid more, right? So yeah, Del Boy, he got his name, that moniker, Del Boy and stuff like that, all right, leaning into the old Fools and Horses and stuff and appealing to Britain, right? Fools and Horses, big part of British culture, TV series. Yeah, all right, I get that, I hear that. Even wears is that balaclava, but with a Union Jack, so it's kind of a bit mixture of, all right, he's a big black guy, right? So we know what that means in popular culture. We know the mythology of the big black buck, right? And so, or the menace, right? So there is, balaclava, all right, fair enough, not showing his face and that, but it's a Union Jack, so, kind of signaling, trying to unpack this psychoanalytically, but signaling to the unconscious or to the British public, it's British though, although I'm a black guy, but it's the Union Jack, so I'm safe, I'm all right. But then he arrived for one of the promotion seminars or meetups, press conferences, if you will, right? They got to sell tickets, they got to do what they got to do. I understand that. He not rocks up, but there's a tank that's brought up, and he and of all people, Nigel Farage. Yeah, Farage is making it sound too not exotic or sophisticated, like Farage, right? That little second-hand car dealer, right? They're bred. Him and Farage and Chisora are mates, right? Of sort, but I put it in earmarks. Remember, they're just using each other, right? Derek is signaling to the far right or to or to Britain across, that although I was from Zimbabwe, like I am British and I subscribe, right? I'm a paid up member of Britishness, right? Whatever that might mean. I'm one of the all right ones, right? And Farage will take any kind of limelight in it. The only thing that he looks like he turns down is his collars, isn't it? Like he just is a hoe in that respect. I don't usually use such terminology, so forgive me for my indiscretion. But yeah, he's up for sale, isn't he? And so yeah, I don't know how that looks. That looks a little bit weird. I can't disassociate from that mythos, right? Or that stereotype of the big black buck. And you know what? When you're a black man in the public eye, you might just want to be an individual, right? You might just want to say I'm here on business. But there is, whether you like it or not, you know what I mean? There is that history of, being leaning into that, either being misperceived like that because people have prejudice and they project that onto you, or sometimes maybe black people use stereotypes, right, to placate the white mainstream, to say I'm all right, I'm one of the safe ones, or I'm one of the ones that you can get behind, right? My ideas and my politics, my flow fall in line with what's deemed okay by the mainstream. I'm a good one, yeah? And I know that fighters aren't necessarily put there for their intellectual prowess or nothing like that. They ain't politicians or university lecturers or researchers or anything like that. They ain't put forward in that sense. But I just remember watching that press conference and just bearing those things in mind. I couldn't ignore them. And it was cringe. It was cringe. It's horrible. It's horrible, man. But and then there was Deontay. To this day, right? Deontay Wilder, Bomb Squad, going on Piers Morgan, right? He's talking about his life, his struggles, his challenges. He has every right to, right? But it was an interesting dialogue that he had with Piers Morgan when Wilder decided to talk about his relationship with, I think, his oldest daughter's mother. And the interview's up there. It was quite sexually graphic. And he went on to, I can't say allude, he said basically she took his male liquid and used it without his authorization to impregnate herself, because she specifically wanted to get pregnant by him. And he's, he did sound noble in saying that, talking about his daughter, and he's glad she's here. She had medical complications, but he's glad that she's here. And he's a dad, and he does everything to take care of his child, so, and puts his life on the line to make sure he can provide, right? So we respect that, but it's like the level of graphicness that he went into, and maybe the unfavorable way that he spoke about the mother of his child, or one of his children. It was mad. Like, why? He wasn't even cornered by Piers. It wasn't as if it was one of those parts of the conversation where the journalist sticks it on him or tries to trap him into a corner where, he ended up saying stuff that maybe he didn't intend to say. He looked like he was in free flow. Just, Piers couldn't believe, look on Piers' face, like he couldn't believe his luck. He was getting all this material without much effort. And there is just something about the way that, and it really pertains to sportsmen, but heavyweight boxing like no other, like what this symbolizes, like in respect to black masculinity, as like a big representation. And if you think that maybe I'm reaching and that these things don't have some kind of impact culturally or in the psyche of black people or in the psyche of the society in general, if you don't think these things influence, I just want you to use your imagination and think, what were things like when an individual like Muhammad Ali was the world champion, or was a guy that was in front of the mic that was articulating and pontificating and sharing different things about whether it's his life and how he sees the world, and he's talking about things more than just boxing. You don't think that had some kind of influence on how black people thought, or black men in particular started to reflect about themselves, or give them a sense of confidence in being able to disagree with the mainstream narrative about them, or reinvent ourselves as black men? You don't think that would have been the case? So likewise, when we've got guys out there speaking, not claiming to be spokesmen for black people, but at the same time they're kind of mincing the thing up, it don't look good. It don't look good. And I know sometimes people, we're kind of quick to say, when somebody that, being affiliated with the far right as a black person, that person's a coconut, right? Or there's some Uncle Tom, and they're an idiot, we draw for that quick to say this person or that person's an idiot, but I actually don't think it's as simple as that. That's what makes it even worse, is that you get to understand that people are a little bit more strategic than that, and sometimes it's calculated. It's not just they were tricked into certain positions or certain representations, but far from it. Man made a calculation and worked out, you know, if you follow the story of like Roots, and you talk about Fiddler, you see the narrative, it's just using this as a story, but you know, Fiddler, he might have acted a certain way and buck dance and, you know, shine and whatever for the master, but don't think Fiddler wasn't dance. It was like him navigating and making choices, yeah, and how he might have been different from Kunta Kinte, who had to navigate, wanting to make some different choices and pay the price, because there is a price, right? There is a price. It ain't free. But we just want to note that. I just want to note that. But let's move on from popular culture and let's get into the mains. Let's get into the mains. Let's get into the mains. You know, we want to take a look at. The dating pool, or should I say cleaning up the dating pool. So we might have a little bit of, actually we got some good time on that. We're good for time, and we're gonna take a look at the dating pool and maybe did we get it, because there is a kind of notion in the black conversation in the UK and on the other side of the pond, right, that people are alluding to the idea that there is a a solid object, and it isn't chocolate, but there's a solid object in the dating pool that is an unfavorable human byproduct that is in the dating pool. And so it's time to clean up. It's time for a revamp. It's time for a refresh, man, because you know you have civilizations that were not as technically advanced as maybe us in the modern era, right? Talking about society across the board, they didn't have the technological advancements, but one thing they could do is people met and paired off and had families, and you know, whether they lived happily or they were all right, but they lived ever after, to speak, right? So what is it that we're doing that maybe needs to be questioned? Definitely, as black people in the diaspora, why all the numbers are saying that we're not meeting as much, that people are not dating to be married, dating to hang out. People are not, men and women, heteronormative people are not doing the thing, as in meeting up and connecting and having, you know, romantic endeavors. That like people's living in silos, man. So with all our technological advancements as a society, we if we compare ourselves to our ancestors, we ain't doing that great, right? Even with our letters of distinction and nice material objects, something ain't right. So yeah, we're gonna come back after the break and take a little deeper dive, looking at what's going on with this dating pool. How did it get bad? Why did it get bad? When did it get bad? And what we gonna do about it?
I've been doing my own thing. Love has always had a way of having bad timing. But to my great surprise, ever since I looked in your eyes, I had one question for you. Tell me if you want me to give you all my time. I wanna make it good for you, 'cause you blow my mind.
Thank you, Groove Theory. Thank you. Yeah, just as a side note, the play, I don't know if you remember last year, there was a play called Why Didn't I Get Married? Written by Alan Charles. Well, The sequel is back. The sequel is back in theaters. I just saw that I was passing a billboard and saw dates for May. Didn't have a chance to identify the dates, but big up to Lady Essie and DJ Supreme from Conscious Radio. That was on last week. But I remember jumping in space last year with them on their show, the More Knowledge Show, to talk to, or have a conversation with themselves and the writer as well, Alan Charles, talking about the play. So always want to support Black theatre and promote Black theatre, and it's a pretty relevant topic. Why Didn't I Get Married is a Black British stage play written and directed by Alan Charles, and it's set in a courtroom style drama exploring the experiences of single Black women within the church, and the plot is to explore the different issues which prevent or have prevented, I think, women from a particular generation of the UK Black community from marriage. And I think these are the kind of conversations that would be helpful for us to have as a community, or to raise these type of issues within the community frequently. I think that it's something that needs to be addressed, not swept under the rug. And for that reason, I would encourage, based on the, if you haven't seen part one, you might be put up to speed with given a summary of what part one was about, but then part two is taking it to the next level. But I think we need more of this social, using art to talk to our real life situations and help us explore issues that are relevant to us, get us thinking in a certain frequency, because it's not always about like having a master teacher that comes and gives us all the answers, but sometimes it's about the set of circumstances that gets us thinking collaboratively. So there's challenges, and then as a people, we there's the collective conscious, as Carl Jung would say, and through our collective conscious, we create answers to the things that we are going through. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. We've got our own brilliant people here in the UK as well. It isn't all about Tyler Perry, but Tyler Perry does his thing. So no shade, but yeah, we need more Black theatre in the UK. Before we can have a Black Pinewood film studio, we need to support Black theatre. Yeah, it's in stages. But yeah, there is a elder called a late elder called Dr. Jawanza Nkufu, Kunjufu, should I say, and he wrote a book called Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, Part 1 and Part 2. Very, very important papers, right? Really important books, talking about the systemic way that racism and white supremacy operates within North America to socialize Black boys into a particular state of mind where they devalue their internal genius, where they gravitate towards antisocial behavior. Like he talks about the climate, which there's a systemic way that gives rise to that, right? And he comes with a solution-based way of addressing that issue, right? It's a countering the conspiracy. So, but he also did a very important piece on male-female relationships, men and women, heteronormative relationships in America. And I think this is like the late 80s to early 90s time frame. But I want to play a little portion of his conversation, and depending on the vibration, we will see what comes up collectively, right? You are more than welcome to call in after the first 5 minutes at any point. The number is 07826 115543. So the phone line will be open in the next 5 minutes, but I just want to play a little portion to stir up a little grey matter, get the mind thinking, and bearing in mind that this is 30 years plus. Is it outdated? Is he speaking to stuff that's going on right now in terms of trends and patterns? He's speaking from America. You might be from Africa directly, or you might be from Africa and you stopped off in the Caribbean, if you follow my drift. But then again, do any of the trends and patterns he's speaking about, do they apply or not?
I've been asked to look at the workshop on black men, black women. We both need each other for the past 10 years. I've always refused. And the reason is I've always felt that in order to give this workshop or write a book, you've had to have been married, happily married, for at least 20 years. Yet it's interesting. I always felt I never could do a good job counseling drug users because I never used drugs. I knew the theory on how to deal with drug users, but never knew practically what they went through. But I know about this workshop. I've been in the good marriages and in the bad marriages. And so this one, I asked the Lord to give me the confidence for because I'm a sinner saved by grace. And I believe that this workshop on relationships is given by someone who knows both the ins and the outs of this particular situation. Black men, black women, we both need each other. It has not been that long. It's been 360 years since we left from Africa to come here. That's 18 generations. 360 years, 18 generations since we came from Africa to America. Black men, black women, we both need each other. And my concern about this particular issue is that we didn't always have these problems. 1 of every 3 marriages in this country ends in a divorce in 18 months. But it used to be around this period, around 16, 19, we were looking for each other. There were black men and women that were sold to Alabama, sold to Mississippi, and they were looking for each other. They never allowed slavery to separate them, to divorce them. But now many of us, it's now become very, very easy to separate. And we're concerned about the situation of black men, black women. We both need each other. A black woman told me that if she was walking down the street late at night and someone was walking toward her, the person she would feel most comfortable walking toward her first would be a what? Can anybody know? Does anybody know? She said a black woman first, then a white woman. You know what she said third? A European male. And the person she said she would feel least comfortable walking toward her late at night would be a black man. It wasn't always this way. It's only been 360 years, only 18 generations. We've come a long way. Black men and black women used to be friends, used to be lovers, used to be protectors. And we're concerned about that. It's even gotten to the point now we feel we can separate black men and women.
The doctor made a point, right, that women in the modern era, black women in the modern era in America, found out that different people approaching them late at night, the person they would least feel comfortable with, or if you reverse it, the person that would give them the most cause for alarm would be a black man. I wonder if we did that experiment in 2026 in London with black people from a variety of backgrounds, right? Ethnic groups, whatever the case may be, but from different backgrounds. I wonder if the findings would be any similar or if they would be different.
Great. Black men and women. Black men and women could never be separated. If a black man is an abuser, a black woman is a victim. If a black man is a pimp, then a black woman has to be a whore. If a black man is a loving husband, a black woman has to be a loving wife. We should never separate from each other. And what I want to do before we look at your bedroom, see, at some point we are coming into your bedroom. But what I want to first of all do is look at the macro issues, look at the societal issues, look at the large issues first, and then we'll look at some of the micro issues, the more issues pertinent to our bedrooms. The first one has to deal with the shortage. At birth, there are 1.03 black boys born in the world to 1.0 black girls. Remember in my book, Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, we looked at the fact that at birth, there are more boys born in the world than there are girls. 18 years later, it is now 1.0 available black men to 1.8 available black women. What I'm getting at is you can't even look at the quality of the relationship if the quantity, the number of men, simply not available. Now, can anyone share with us, what do you think is the impact on relationships with a male shortage? Remember at birth, more boys than girls. 18 years later, almost 2 black women for every 1 black man. What's the impact of having more women to men on relationships? Okay, so women may lower their standards in this shortage. Any other factors? Yes.
Men feel highly prized.
Okay, so men feel highly prized. What does that do to men?
It might give them an inflated sense of their own importance.
Okay.
Or an unrealistic sense of
So women may lower their standards and men may have a inflated ego that may not be correct. Sammy?
And then a lot of vicious relationships between women out of the competition for the few men.
Okay, so the lack of sisterhood and unity that exists between the sisters. And the other thing is, not only do we have a shortage with regards to availability, but the other issue is, don't let a sister say that she wants a responsible black man. She wants an educated black man. She wants a black man that's employed, or as you would probably point out, own their own business. A black man that also is committed to the race, and also a black man that has put God first in their lives. I mean, it's bad enough to have a shortage, but don't let a black woman, Sakia, be choosing and say she wants someone who's responsible, who's educated, who's employed, who's committed to the race and committed to God. One serious problem with these issues has to do with the shortage of black men. And one of our concerns is trying to develop black boys to be men so we won't have a situation like this occurring. But some other issues I want to look at with regards to the macro issue has to deal with the impact of racism and economic exploitation has on our people. When I mentioned the divorce rate was 1 of every 3 in 18 months, one reason for this is when America believes in agriculture, America believes in extended family. When America believes in the factory industrialism, America believed in a nuclear family. But now that America...
So, yeah, what are we thinking about the idea of there being a shortage? I've heard this conversation in more recent times, right? Like I said, this recording from Dr. Kawanza Njufu was recorded way back in the early 90s. So we're talking over 30 years ago. But nonetheless, I've been hearing about in London, in the UK, Manchester, Derby, the different locales where black people live in larger numbers, that there is a shortage of black men in relation to single dating age, marriageable age men in comparison to black women, that there is a shortage of black men. And there's a number of reasons why. Maybe it will come up in the conversation when someone calls in, when you call in on 07 826 115543. But there being a shortage of men, how does that impact the dating pool? I've heard this said that there is a shortage of men. And so what happens in the dating world, this was mentioned by a more mainstream commentator, but I wonder if it applies to the black community, right? That there is a shortage of men that meet the criteria of what modern women in society would find desirable. And what happens is that you have a lot of young men either opting out or being rejected, and so they're out the game. And then there is a small cabal. I think that's my word though, cabal. He didn't say cabal, but there's a small elite, right, that meet the criteria. And the commentator suggested it doesn't create good behavior because you have a small number of men with all the choice. So he said that movie doesn't end well. So I wonder if that applies to the black community as well, where like the play, this raised the issue, the play that I mentioned earlier on, Why Didn't I Get Married, right? This issue crops up in black spaces, right, about the shortage of legible men, right, for one reason or another. Maybe we could talk about, are some of those reasons bogus, right? or are they more realistic and relevant? Are they factual? Are they based on hard data, or is a lot of it to do with maybe just preference, right? Because there's something there's a let's say objective element, like if there are men out of society because they're serving long custodial sentences, so it's not exactly the best husband material, right? So that might be like an objective thing that would discount a man. But then saying somebody's discounted because from the dating world because of them being on a moderate income, for example, or an average income, then that might be more of a subjective reason, right, for there being a shortage. Because, you know, by the nature of average means most. The average is the most common. So, you know, how reasonable is that?
America believes in the computer, the word processor, the typewriter. Now America believes in the single parent family. What I'm getting at is many of us think that we do what we want to do in these relationships. Not true. We do what the economy wants us to do, and as you can see, with each change, they've reduced the family structure smaller and smaller and smaller. For example, in a farm, in a farm, they both work the fields together. An economic reason to stay together. So that in 1910, 90% of all black children still lived in a two-parent household. See, there was more than love in these relationships. There was some money involved here. They worked the fields together. An economic reason to stay together. In a factory, man works in factory, woman takes care of children. Economic reason again to stay together. So that in 1960, 80% of all black children still lived in a two-parent household. You know, the rumor is slavery destroyed the black family. I tell you, we were still together. Not only during slavery, but after slavery. The Depression, 30 years after 1929, 80% of all black children still lived in a two-parent household. But now we have the computer, the word processor, the typewriter. And now you have women working just as much as men. And now you hear women telling men, I don't need you. Got my own job.
Ho ho! Ho ho! Dr. Kunjufu, did you say I don't need you? That was 30 years ago. And when he said it, that means it was a trend of the time. Nothing going on but the rent. Gotta have a J-O-B. Remember? Eddie Murphy spoke about that. He spoke about that. How's it panning out, family man? How's that ideology panning out? How is it working out? We can do better. We together can do better, and we will do better. But there is human byproduct in the dating pool. It's brown. It smells very unpleasant, and we have to clean the pool today.